My article this time in RC Model Cars magazine was on the 1993 1/10th Off-Road World Championships. All the major 1/10th off-road teams from all around the world were heading for Basildon, England. It was time again for the IFMAR 1/10th scale Off-Road World Championships. The last Worlds was held 2 years ago in Detroit, Michigan, and now we were in England with the TMAC Club hosting this race under the very good leadership of John Newton, the race director. The track was just 1 block from our hotel. That was the good part. The bad part is they drive on the wrong side of the street. One day Joel Johnson was getting in his car to go to lunch while I was walking by. He said, "Time for another exciting experience." This is exactly how each one of us felt every time we drove somewhere. Luckily, McDonald's, Burger King, and Colonel Sanders were all within a mile or two, so we didn't have to drive too far every day. Is this a great hobby van or what? Way to go, Ripmax! The high driver stand gave a great view of the track. The main race sponsors were Team Associated and Parma. The handsomest devil here.
Facial muscles. Get a mirror. I am huge. Facial muscles. I try to think of a really good joke now.
A little? Get to eat a little? Energy, huh?
Attention please, attention. Will David Appleman please come to race control? Will David Appleman please come to race control? See Tony Pitt. Thank you.
Get the fast guys.
Hi, Gene.
You're looking good on that track. It's incredible. That's a challenge, major challenge, I think. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Gene.
You almost had it the last time.
Yeah.
You were driving good that time. Getting there. Cliff's working on his Yamaha.
Yeah, that's what I'm working on.
lightweight version. What do you know?
You always bring that thing around and make us look stupid.
What do you mean? You're looking good. The track that looks stupid.
Okay. Email.
Everybody's working on tires. I'm a slave driver. These guys can't keep up.
Wow, so fast.
Mark, I don't know.
Hey, Brad.
No, let him sleep. Let him sleep. What? What?
Ouch. Sleeping on the job.
Working on it. Everybody else is glue and you're marking yours? You must be all ready to go. Where'd this guy come from? I thought he wasn't even coming.
We had to talk him in there.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about you.
Yeah. For the practice days, the track was pretty good and our team associated drivers were going pretty fast. But then the track started to tear up and we started to slow down to the point where Joel Johnson was able to TQ on his first qualifier. Going into the last qualifying round, Brian Kinwald wasn't even in the main event, but all of a sudden he put in a great run and I went over to his pits and asked him what he did. Brian said all he did was put in the hydrodrive transmission. So right then I went over to the local hobby dealer at the track and bought the last 4 hydrodrive transmissions for RC10s that he had and bought 2 more from local racers and gave them to the rest of our A main drivers. The track was deteriorating so bad now that I knew this was our only hope. A number of people helped our guys set them up. Thanks a lot, guys.
Sure, Joel Johnson.
Can I have you all the way from here, please?
In second place on the grid from America, please welcome Scott Brown. third place on the grid, well travelled, seen him many times in this country, from America, Mark Pavides. In fourth place on the grid, from America, please welcome Matt Francis. In fifth place on the grid, also from America, please welcome Carlos Gonzalez. In sixth place on the grid, multiple British champion, reigning European champion from England, please welcome Craig Drescher. In seventh place on the grid, the man who has won more events than anybody else, more world championships than anybody else, unarguably the world's greatest driver, please welcome from Japan, Masami Hirosaka. In eighth place on the grid, again a racer we've seen a lot of in the UK, well travelled, well liked, will you please welcome from America, Brian Kinwald. In ninth place on the grid, from America, John Kuntz. And in 10th place on the grid, will you please welcome from America, Matt Ledger. Ladies and gentlemen, rain this morning, don't worry about it. The grid. I'm going to clear the grid, honest I am.
Move the second car in, please.
Right, for those of you who are of a mind for these technical things, in pole position on the grid, Joel Johnson driving the new Losi XX car. Second on the grid, Scott Brown, also driving Losi. Third on the grid, Mark Pavides from Associated. And fourth on the grid, Matt Francis, also driving Associated. Fifth on the grid is Carlos Gonzalez, driving Associated. And sixth, Craig Drescher, also driving Associated. Stand by. Away we go then. Joel Johnson gets a good start. But they're all massing behind him and there's been an accident. Joel's got a bit of a lead. And it's 5 and 3 coming through and then 6. Carlos Gonzalez, Mark Pavides and Craig Drescher. Carlos Gonzalez right up behind Joel Johnson and goes through. Carlos Gonzalez takes the lead. Only temporarily though. Joel's got it back. And it's Mark Pavides up behind him now. Joel goes sideways, Mark gets in. It's Mark Pavides then, Joel Johnson and Craig Drescher. Craig goes past Joel. So Mark Pavides leads, Craig Drescher second, Joel Johnson third. And now Brian Kimball's in there having a try. Mark Pavides crashes on the jump, so Brian Kimball takes the lead, Joel Johnson second. And it's Matt Ledger right up from the back in third place now. Mark Pavides goes through in fourth. John Kuntz in fifth. So Brian Kinwald leads. Well, what about that? Last time he was in front, it was only a mistake to put Joel back in there. So can Joel do anything about this? Brian Kinwald leads. Joel Johnson second. And Matt Ledger in third place. All hell breaking out behind them. So Brian Kimball still in the lead then, followed by Joel Johnson. Matt Francis in third, Matt Ledger fourth, Mark Pavides fifth. Here comes Brian Kimball. Over the start line goes Brian. Here comes Joel Johnson. 2.5 seconds to lead now for Brian Kimball. Behind him we've got car number 4, Matt Francis. And then behind him, car number 3, Mark Pavides, and then 10, Matt Ledger. All strung out behind these then. 10 and 3 having a right old go there, Matt Ledger and Mark Pavides. Matt Ledger gets it, Mark Pavides gets him back at the hospitality turn and over the bunny hop. But still Brian Kimball in front. Magnificent display from young Brian here. It was second, I remind you, in the first leg, and Joel Johnson was first. So this is going to reverse the positions if it stays like this. Brian Kimball, and a big mistake from Brian, quickly marshalled. But that's allowed Joel to close up. Brian doesn't need any more mistakes like that. Joel in second place, and he's under pressure now from car 4, Matt Francis. Matt Francis coming up behind him as they go onto the terrace. Matt with the inside line. Joel either very nervous with his car moving as good. Matt going for the inside. So Brian Kimball leads then. Matt Francis all over the back of Joel Johnson. What can he do about it? Joel goes into the hospitality turn, swings it around pretty sharp there. Still can't shake off Matt Francis. So it's Brian Kimball in front, car 8. Then Joel Johnson, car 1. And then Matt Francis, car 4. And they're actually slightly gaining on Brian Kimball. Now the gap's down to just over a second. So they're beginning to haul him in. Brian's car looking really smooth and punchy in the infield. The other guys sort of tiptoeing it round, but Brian Kimball's car looks nice and safe in the infield. Got some legs down the straight as well, so you can understand why he's in the lead of this race. The car all round looking really good. Brian Kimball leads, Joel Johnson second, Matt Francis third, under pressure now from car number 4 and 3, Mark Pavides. 3 goes through, Mark Pavides goes through. Lovely manoeuvre from Mark. Into the hospitality turn, Brian Kimball leads still. But the race is on for third now between Mark Pavides and Matt Francis, cars 3 and 4. 40 seconds to go, 40 seconds to go. Brian Kimball leads, Joel Johnson second. Oh, the mistake from Mark, that puts Matt Francis up to third. 30 seconds to go now, 30 seconds to go. Still Brian Kimball in front, Joel Johnson is second. Matt Francis third, Mark Pavides fourth. In fifth is Craig Drescher, 6th is Scott Brown, 7 Masami, Hirosaka, 8 is Matt Ledger, 9th is John Kuntz, and 10th is Carlos Gonzalez. Finishing times, drivers. Get that car off the bunny hop. Thank you. Leaders are coming round behind you, 9. So Brian Kimball's going to do it. Brian Kimball wins. 8 finish, 9 finish. 10 finish, 1 finish, 4 finish. 3 finish, 6 finish. 2 finish, 7 finish. Drive. I think another round of applause for Brian Kimball.
That much I know.
We have to change the jackets now, James. Add another one on.
Brian Kimball, could you please come and see the press at race control? Brian Kimball, please come to race control and see the guy from the TV. Thank you.
Get your picture on the back. Put your car on there.
There you go.
Good four-wheeler, you get both of your cars on there.
One way to do it. Joel Johnson on the left TQ'd and finished second, and Craig Drescher, who finished third, hoisted the winner, Brian Kimball, up on his shoulders, making a perfect picture. Congratulations, guys. Brian's RC10 features Reedy motors and batteries, Novak speed control, and electronics radio, and Proline tires. Brian Kinwald did the impossible. He wasn't even in the mains until the last round of qualifying, and then he won the World Championships. Wow! Way to go, Brian.
Champion, will you welcome from Japan, Masami Hirosaka. In second place on the grid, sponsored by Schumacher, Tanaplan, Orion and Nosram. From Britain, Ben Sturnham. In third place on the grid, sponsored by Schumacher, William Mitchum. Sponsored by Peak Performance, Yokomo, Orion, Novak and Futaba. Welcome Rick Howett. In fifth place on the grid, sponsored by Yokomo, Reedy, Sanwa, and please welcome Shinosuke Adachi. In sixth place on the grid, sponsored by Schumacher, KO, MPH and LRP. From Britain, Kevin Moore. Sponsored by Reedy, Associated, Orion, Yokomo and Novak. From America, JD Beckwith. By Reedy, Associated, Yokomo, Novak and Proline. Welcome Mark Pavides. In ninth place on the grid, sponsored by LRP, Yokomo and Associated. From America, Derek Furatani. In 10th place on the grid, sponsored by Trinity, Losi, Kyosho and Novak. Already a world champion in 1987. Please welcome from America, Joel Johnson.
Yes, Alan.
Trying to switch it off for a bit. Just set the button for
Right, Paul, to the grid clear.
1 minute please, clear the track, 1 minute.
Come on, mate, come on up.
It's 10 seconds. Stand by. Away they go. Good clean start again. Oh, and a big accident from Masami on the terrace. Yeah, Masami. It's car number 2 of Ben Sturnham who leads. Car 2 leads, and then it's 8 and 4. Mark Pavides and Rick Howett. So Ben Sturnham leads, car number 2, followed by Mark Pavides, then Rick Howett, Masami Hirosaka, JD Beckwith, Kevin Moore, William Mitchum. So Ben Sturnham leads car number 2, followed by Mark Pavides, Rick Howett, Masami Hirosaka, Kevin Moore, JD Beckwith, Derek Furatani, Joel Johnson and Shinosuke Adachi. William Mitchum in there somewhere, car 3 on this, William. Still the leader is Ben Sturnham, car number 2, followed by 8 Mark Pavides, and then 4 Rick Howett and 1 Masami Hirosaka. leads. Ben Sternum down the straight. Mark Pavidi still in hot pursuit. Masami moves up to third place. Problems for Rick Howard. He moves back to fourth. So Masami Hirosaka moves up to third place. Mistake from Mark Pavides. So Masami Hirosaka moves into second place now. Car number 1. Ben Sternum car 2 leads. 2 followed by 1 and then 8 Mark Pavides. 2 minutes gone in the race. 3 minutes to go. 4 laps for the leading cars. 3 minutes to go. 2 leads. Ben Sternum. And then 1 Masami Hirosaka and 8 Mark Pavides. It's Kevin Moore in fourth place now, followed by William Mitchum and Rick Howard. And then 9, Derek Furatani. 2 and 1 and 8, the leading 3 cars into Hospitality Turn. Over Bunny Hop 2. And an accident for Ben. So Masami leads. So Ben Sternum clips the concrete, drops back to third place. It's still Mark Pavides in second, but the leader now, car number 1, Masami Hirosaka. Mark Pavides, Ben Sternum, and then it's Kevin Moore in fourth place now, followed by Rick Howard. And then William Mitchum, J.D. Beckwith, Joel Johnson, Shinosuke Adachi, and car number 9 of Derek Furatani. Ben now trying to get back in front of Mark Pavides, but Masami Hirosaka leads, car number 1. Masami Hirosaka leads, Mark Pavides second, Ben Sternum third. Ben attacking now, goes through on the inside, takes a place from Mark Pavides. Minute and 20 seconds to go. Ben Sternum in second place now, with Mark Pavides in hot pursuit and Kevin Moore catching them up. Mark Pavides goes for the inside but hits the rope. Goes wide in the S, so he's got now Kevin Moore up behind him. So Ben on his own in second place, the leader. Still car number 1 coming past race control now. Car number 1, Masami Hirosaka leads. Car number 2, Ben Sternum in second place now. And 8 Mark Pavides and 6 Kevin Moore together, fighting for third place. We've got 40 seconds to go in the race. Masami Hirosaka leads. Ben Sternum in second place. Kevin Moore gets past Mark Pavides for third place. So Japan, Britain and America is the order. Seconds to go, drivers. 10 seconds to go. Car 1 leads. In second place is Ben Sternum, car number 2. Finishing times, drivers. 8 and 6 you've finished. 8 and 6 you've finished. 3 finished. 7 finished. 10 finished. 9 finished. 5 finished. 1 finished. 4 finished. 2 finished. Still racing. 6 and 8 finished. And the winner, Masami Hirosaka. So a win there. Right. Okay, well the referees, sounds like a horse race meeting. The referees have called for a video replay of the start, so better hold my powder dry until we get the result of that.
Masami Hirosaka's Yokomo car features Reedy motors, Sanyo batteries, Novex speed control, and Proline tires. Congratulations to Masami Hirosaka for winning yet another World Championships. Masami, you're awesome. A great feature article on Brian's and Masami's winning cars in RC Car Action magazine. Thank you, Car Action. We're going to have to change this to 12 now. What a problem. Is this a great cup or what? This is from RC Driver magazine. Brian Kinwald wins the Off-Road World Championships. Associated's great ad, which ran in all the magazines. At the same time, we were releasing our new team truck. Thank you for the cover, RC Model Cars magazine. This is a practice day on a damp track. Ralph Birch on a qualifying run.
Seconds to start, 10 seconds.
This is Ralph's car, looking good. This is Birch's semi, which was run on a damp track. This is Ralph spinning out. This is Ralph spinning out again. Ralph ended up 10 laps down at the end. Unbelievable. Watch us pass by Lamberto Collari to take the lead here. Collari goes on to lead the whole race. Michael Salvin kept Collari in his sights and really put the pressure on. They were always on the same lap, and Michael made a very good race out of it. This is Collari out on a Sunday drive. Congratulations to Lamberto Collari for winning your second World Championships. Thank you, RC Car Action Magazine, for naming our RC10 off-road buggy and our RC10T and our RC10L on-road car and our RC12 LW cars as Cars of the Year. Mike Thompson from RC Driver Magazine came over to Associated and interviewed me for this article. And this article that Mike did was very fair and accurate, so I want to thank Mike for that. Thank you, Mike.
Alrighty, coming across. It's on the clock and running. Right down on that low. Oh, look out! Scattering the photographer. Hang on to it, buddy. He did not start. Oh man, what a bummer too.
All right. Steve Bull on the track down the back straightaway in the open there.
It's dead.
That's control.
There's 500 gallons of diesel fuel on that truck.
You just didn't either stick enough or just didn't go fast enough.
Okay, Steve Bull then on the back.
That's all right, though.
Holding cars entry. Another open wheel car from the top of the pile. One more time.
So hard to get up to speed.
Some of these guys use that search on quick change.
She's got good speed so far. The car's out.
That's what I said.
You were last go, but you're glad I didn't go last.
He's on the clock and he crosses the line. It looks awesome.
Big wiggle there on. He's got control. Once again, this is an 80 ox motor. We're looking for 87 or maybe 90. Here he comes.
84.44. But he's still out there. He's still out there.
Left hook in the left car. The Novak team Novak entry.
He's ready. Cars on the back straightaway. Bring that up. Whenever you're ready.
What was it?
From the speed, back straight, 3 or 4, they'll punch him across the line. That'll put him on the clock when he crosses the stripe.
Whoa!
First ever winner of the Insane Speed Runs. He's looking to regain that title after 6 years. Here he comes.
There you go, there you go, there you go.
85.72. It's a good one, but it's not a great one.
Who's up next?
They're coming in immediately. Starting on the back straight, coming to 3 or 4, and heading on the front straight.
Look for him to punch him off on the worker. He does here on that line.
Oh, wow, Mark, what do you think?
That looks pretty good. He keeps it right on the line. The smoothest run so far. Turn. 86.1.
Over here with me, I'll tell you.
Tell dudes. That guy.
Throw it back like 5-second champion. He did 85.
Oh, wow, here he comes.
Here we go.
Keeping it tight.
That's fast. Oh, that's pretty fast.
87 miles. Very happy because he was that same setup on his car.
That was awesome. I'm keeping on going high on roll number 4. That's got our insane speed
marshal says we're rolling. Turn marshals on your toes, pit in your stations, drivers. At the toe. 200 lap main event underway. They're rolling slowly for turn 1 and 2.
The RC Car Action Super Speedway main event is off and running. That's an orange and white car. Could that be Danny Yeager across the line first?
And Roger Payne right behind him, I believe.
Danny Yeager took off in the lead like a dragster with glued tires, and he pulled steadily away from the pack. Danny led more than half the race.
It looks like Clausen's going to take us across the line for number 2. Yes, it is Ken Clausen, the number 2 car. Roger Payne in third, Joe McGregor in third. John Peterson, 14, but Jones in the fifth spot. And there's the lead pack on the bank in 3, on the bank in 4, across the stripe at the end of lap number 3.
12-7, 12-9, our leaders are under the 13-second mark.
12-9 for Kornblatt and Hamilton back in the 6th and 7th spot also.
Large pack moved into the 4 now. That's 5, 6 cars with Roger Payne, John Peterson. Pick them up as they go. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and 8 coming out of turn number 2.
Roger Payne takes a higher line on the straightaways. Peterson keeps looking inside, and Peterson finally pulls off the pass, puts it down on the paint. And slower cars already becoming effective. The number 19 car has a leader on him, and he goes high and lets him go off.
Lap number 12, Kornblatt to third.
That was Sean Arlen, also a contender in the pits. Number 3 is in the pits.
Peterson got the apron. Here he comes. Clausen trying to make a pass before pit lane. And we got a pass in pit lane.
Clausen and his pitman making a perfect pit stop.
Oh, and Clausen is out extremely fast. Look at this pit stop. Here comes around. This is going to be a good one.
That was awesome. Clausen's lap even on the cool net last year's Thunderdome Super Speedway main event.
He knows how to do it. He raced earlier. He passed Peterson.
About 10 minutes into the race, Ken Clausen had pulled up behind Danny, and it looked like there was going to be a great race for the lead.
Slowly but surely. Let's hope he can keep the leaders in sight. Not too many laps down before the end of the race. Ken Clausen is still the leader with them 2 car across the line right there. Those are the tide colors. For those of you that recognize it, that is the colors of the car that we're going to get from them. Car number 12, HPI sponsor, 10, California, Gary Hamilton is the leader.
Gary Hamilton out in front. Red car number 2, Roger Payne in the 3 car. 2 more leads as he goes. 60 laps is under 12 seconds a lap in qualifying. And now he's back in right behind Ken Clausen.
Kent got penalized a number of times for pit stop infractions.
Down the front straightaway he goes. At last lap 13.1. Second lap.
Ken Clausen had to make that extra pit stop. The track and 2 go low on the backstreet, low on the backstreet, low on the backstreet. Go low on the backstreet, guys.
This is where 200 laps comes in. The pitman has to run over.
Clausen tagged a spun-out car and broke an axle.
To repair the car, put it back on the track, but he can't gain the laps. He's going to lose Clausen in or out of it. He might get out there, but he won't be in the top 10.
Holy smoke, fireball's rocking back hard. Here we come.
By the inside, sees his teammate coming and lets him go. Hamilton maintains his lead. And
Anchor on the apron. Anchor in the apron. Here he comes into pit lane. Now they're going to do the better thing.
That's going to let Hamilton put a lap on him now.
Let's take a look at this pit stop. Blue shirt down there. Car batteries in, batteries out.
Here comes Hamilton, the number 12 car on the bumper of the number 1 car. Goes high in the making and Hamilton.
5 out of 4. Moving into pit lane. Here comes our leader, number 12 in the pit lane. Let's follow the pit stop. He moves in. He gets back in at 13. Car's up. Battery out. Battery out. Let's look at pit stop. Also pit lane.
That is Brian Bowler. Brian Bowler is top for 2 years running with the expert modified class in the 4-minute division. Bowler also won last year. This is also the 2nd year in a row that he's pitting for Gary Hamilton.
From the pit lane. Car back to the pit lane.
And Danny's out. Battery pack is out. New pack is in. Hamilton is underway. It's a sideways. Battery pack hung up. They're working on the car.
Pova looking down the same lap. Car number 6. Derek Pova's on the same lap now.
That's the only miscue we've seen out of the Hamilton pits the entire race.
Danny Yeager looking to get on the same lap also. 14 car behind him. Derek says, get out of my way, man. I'm going another lap.
Povo was forced out of the pits by the number 4 10 car. Didn't want to run into him. Had to stand on the Yes, Povo was slow lap time last time. That's the number 6 car back in the 2nd spot. A 15-6, even with the slowdown.
Danny Yeager. Speaking of Danny Yeager, we're having trouble picking him up. The 2 car having trouble across the track here.
Good call by Derek Povo. Came into the pit with 1 car out on the tells he's slowing down. The leader across the line right there, Danny Yeager. And looks like McGregor's coming into the pits. The HPI sponsor number 7 car.
27 battery pack here a little later.
Danny Yeager with the same front. Down the back straightaway. They go into turn 3. Going to do 4 on the big pole line. That's the driving line. And they've got Danny Yeager only 3/4 of the track ahead.
He's got a half a lap.
Welcome back to the 4th spot. He goes down a lap of the leader, but Yeager needs to make the pit stop soon. Lap times for him at high 14s. We've got 170 down, drivers, 30 laps to go.
Clover's got traffic, slow
Speed in turn 3 and 4. Summer Rector's going to go by, take the lead back.
Peterson and Cole, I think they're not back on Ireland, so this could be interesting.
Sean Ireland was closing in fast on the leader, and it looked like there was going to be a photo finish.
And McGregor flying, 10 laps left to go.
Second, Peterson in third, Cole in fourth. Egger back to fifth. McGregor across the line there. He's going to put Egger down a lap.
Wow, Joe McGrader had a great weekend. He won the Insane Speed Run and then came back and won the Enduro. Awesome.
What a weekend this guy is having.
And John Peterson, firmly entrenched in third spot, coming across the line, number 9. Victor Engineering Sport McGregor.
McGregor about to take all the marbles. 2 laps to go. 1 lap in the white flag for car number 7.
And Sean Ireland has this thing pulled all the way back, pull to the middle, call it what you want. He's got the throttle wide open.
He's turning that grip into diamond. It's almost so tight. McGregor across the line. He takes the corner. He got his back up. The white flag comes out for Joe McGregor.
Of course, screaming pretty loud. It seemed like it hit something. Ireland down the back straightaway.
Less than falling off the pace. He's slowing the back straightaway. Ireland only about 20 car lengths back, but it may be too late. Checkered flag comes out for Joe McGregor. McGregor wins it.
Sean Ireland second. Over to John Peterson in the third spot. Coming out of turn number 4, the mover of the day.
Congratulations to John Peterson for his great third-place finish with 199 laps. And congratulations also to Sean Ireland for his great second-place finish. And the winner is Joe McGregor. Congratulations on your win, Joe. I hope you got room in your car for that trophy. Automobile Magazine ran an ad in their magazine promoting a tour of the Ferrari, Lamborghini, and Bugatti car factories in Italy and limited to 30 people. I immediately contacted my 2 sons, Brian and Curtis, to see if they wanted to go. Of course they wanted to go, with David E. Davis, the editor of the magazine, and with Gene Lindemood, the deputy editor, co-hosting the tour. As soon as we got to Italy, left the airport, and picked up our 2 BMWs, we drove to our first hotel and met Gene Lindemood. She asked our names and immediately named me Gino, and Brian became Brianaldo, and Curtis became Curtissimo. And those were our official names whenever we were with Gene Lindemood. Then we checked into the hotel and met in a meeting room with all the 30 touring group members to learn more about what we would be doing on our tour. They gave each of us this notebook which explained in detail exactly where, when, and how we should do what is scheduled for the next 10 days. So the 3 of us started to read our notebooks to see what the directions were on how to get to our next hotel tomorrow, in Como. There were 2 ways to go. One was a normal way, which was all the normal people took. But we chose the adventurous route because we were either adventurous or just plain stupid, as you'll begin to understand. This is what these instructions say. In the middle it says, "Attention! The route described below leads you from Macagna to Vera over the Paseo de Niga. This route has countless hairpin turns and narrow roads. Some of these roads are so narrow that passing is impossible. Moreover, the ravines are very deep." meaning thousands of feet down. This route is absolutely sensational. It has breathtaking views, and from a sporting perspective, it will be a real highlight. This route requires driving skills, concentration, and accuracy, and you should only drive this route if you feel up to it. And then, where the arrow is pointing, it tells you how to get to the hotel in a totally sane, safe way, like anyone in their right mind should do. And so we start off with Brian Aldo driving the lead car with Curtissimo as co-pilot and me following in my car. This is the start of the trip, which doesn't look so bad. If you like driving, then this is what it's all about, so we take off. We continue climbing up to the top, which takes a while and is over 6,000 feet high. As we get higher and higher, the road gets narrower and narrower until it becomes a one-lane road. That's okay, but then the guardrails disappear, and then it's a 6,000-foot drop down to the bottom. At this point, I honk my horn, and we stop on a safe place, and I ask Curtis to change places with me so I can be in the lead car with Brian. Brian's doing a great job, but we're coming up to a very sharp left-hand turn with a ravine to our right-hand side. We hadn't seen another car all the way up here, but I didn't want to meet one head-on at this upcoming sharp left-hand turn. So I told Brian to slow down to 10 miles an hour. I wanted our car planted on the ground as much as possible, and then I told Brian to stay as close as possible to the side of the mountain. And then we got halfway around the turn, and it happened. There were two motorcycles right in front of us. Brian hit the brakes, seemingly without any hesitation. The cycle to our right headed for my side of our car. His handlebars just missed my door panel as he used up every inch of pavement to pass our car and then Curtis's car. The second cycle then followed the same route, both going about 40 miles per hour. They were great drivers. Wow, I don't know how they did it. I know our hearts stopped and skipped a beat when all this was happening, and I know the cyclist took a deep breath when this was all over too. Luckily, there were no other problems, so from then on, we could really kind of breathe normally. What a way to start our Italian vacation. Because we were on the adventure tour, our instructions on how to find our hotels were given in rally terms, such as, at the first gas station, turn left. At the next signal, turn right. At the red fence, turn right. In other words, the co-pilot really had to pay attention or you were lost forever. This was where our instructions took us, which was Old Town. Old Town means before automobiles. It was hard to imagine that we were going to be driving through this crowd, but we could see the van going in here, so maybe we were on the right course yet. We had switched places with Curtis leading and me and Brian Aldo following. We're thinking we're lost and getting further and further off course. This can't be right. There is no way this can be a street with all these people on it. Well, let's go back and take the same drive again so you can believe it's true. We're going into the same entrance now and down the same street. Nobody honks any horns. It looks like it is a street and a walkway all at the same time. And we did get to the hotel to meet Jean Lindemood again. Thank God. The next day, we went to the Ferrari factory to take a tour of the factory. The Ferrari factory didn't allow tours because it was too disrupting. But when you're from Automobile Magazine, who can write good things about you or bad things, doors magically open. This is a very small waiting room at the entranceway. Cortissimo found the car he wanted to drive. For some reason, it looks like I grow a lot of hair here, but actually that was Jean Lindemood's way of having some fun. As we're standing next to David E. Davis, the editor of Automobile Magazine. They wouldn't let us take any photos in the factory, but we'll be talking about the factory a little later on in our tour. After our factory tour, we headed right across the street to the perfect Ferrari factory souvenir shop. It was incredible. There just had to be something you couldn't live without. And this helmet is what I chose. It's one of Gilles Villeneuve, a very famous and favorite Formula One driver from Ferrari in Italy. And next we drove the short distance to the Ferrari Museum. Outside, on the entryway, they have two semicircle posts with posters of famous Ferrari Formula One drivers. On one of the other poles is Mario Andretti. Inside the museum is a model of every Ferrari ever made. Brianaldo hasn't figured out which one he wants yet. They also have a model of every Formula One car they've made in mint condition, of course. Even the tires shine. More Formula One cars. In the Ferrari factory, the customer cars are lined up like this. The only parts that are made in the factory are the engines. So the car is assembled piece by piece from the chassis up until they have the whole assembled car completed at this same spot. There is no moving line. They make about 12 Ferraris a day on average. So they're working on about 100 Ferraris at a time. In comparison, Chevrolet makes one new car every 30 seconds. We had a very nice young Italian girl who was our guide, and when we got to the back end of the building, she told us, "Now the pilot gets in the car and he drives it to the Autostrasse, which is the freeway, and he takes it up to top speed to see if there is any vibrations or rattles or any other problems." When she finished, she said, "Is there any questions?" I raised my hand and she said, "Yes." I said, "You said the pilot takes the car to the Autostrasse and takes it up to top speed and checks it out, right?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "But the speed limit on the Autostrasse is 120 kilometers per hour, which is about 75 miles per hour. But he'll be doing almost 300 kilometers per hour." She straightens up and she says, "This is Ferrari. This is Italy. This is okay." This gave us some kind of idea how important Ferrari is to Italy. Cortissimo is checking out this blue Ferrari. Yes, they make Ferraris in different colors. Everybody thinks the official color of Ferrari is red because so many people prefer red Ferraris. But the official color of Ferrari is yellow, which you can see on the emblem of the red Ferrari in the background. Now we're getting to the V12 horsepower. Awesome. Somehow or other, all of this fits in the car. A whole row of horsepower. In the museum, they moved Enzo Ferrari's room, complete with desk and chairs and display table and pictures. His desk was located right in the entryway of the factory, so he could see who was coming to work early and who was coming late. At least that's what our guide said. After the museum, our next stop was to the Ferrari test track. They don't use this for their Formula One cars anymore, but it is used for their touring and GTP cars, which we're looking at one at speed now. He's slowing down now, coming into the pits. Brian Aldo's got a great shot. See the yellow and black Ferrari emblem on the front fender? Going back to the garage area. And now we are off to a tour of the Lamborghini factory. They wouldn't let us take photos inside either here, except for this car in the display room. So we went around the building to the back, and there was one Lamborghini driving around behind the building. They have a great sound to them. A customer picking up his car. Our last visit was to the totally new Bugatti factory. This factory is a work of art. This is called first class. Wow! They wanted everybody to see their factory. Please take pictures. After seeing this now, it was easier to see why Ferrari and Lamborghini didn't want any photos taken inside their old World War II era buildings. Bugattis are traditionally blue, but I like the silver edition better. But then nobody would know it's a Bugatti. Bugatti had a traditional assembly line, more like Ford and Chevy, but Ferrari makes 10 times more cars than Bugatti. It was a spectacular factory. The chassis are seated on rollers, as you can see, so as the line moves, each chassis can be moved up to the next position. This chassis is also in a lift position. You can see 2 yellow arms extended underneath the chassis, and there is 2 on the other side, which will allow the chassis to be lifted up and work performed on the underside. Talking my language again. It's easy to see what a 5-valve head layout looks like here. The 3 smaller valve ports closer to you are the intake ports, and the 2 large ports are the exhaust ports. Most common engines only have 1 intake valve and 1 exhaust valve. One more head to install and we're almost done. How trick is this? This engine has 4 turbochargers, 2 on each side down below. This guy's got the toughest job here. First, he's got to install the engine, then he's got to install all the fuel lines, hoses, wiring, belts, intake ducts, etc., etc. But he got it all done, and now you can't even see all his hard work. The sad part about all this is Bugatti went out of business 12 years later. Not enough customers. And now we're off to see the famous Mia Miglia race, which is 100 times bigger than a Formula One race in Italy. Instead of the people having to come to the race, they take the race to the people. This could only happen in Italy. The race starts at the top in Brescia and heads south through 17 cities on its way to Rome, and then heads back north through 16 cities and finishes back in Brescia. Stop and think what this means. 330 cars are going to be racing all around Italy on public streets for 600 miles, and virtually everyone in Italy will have a chance to see it live. This could only happen in Italy. The legendary Mia Miglia race is next. It's 1,000 kilometers long, about 600 miles. We're starting right in the town square of Brescia 2 days before the race. It looks like it's packed solid with people. Actually, there's a lot of cars there too that they're looking at, as well as display booths. This is Brian Aldo in the foreground with a backpack full of film. All the side streets like this around the town square are full of cars and people just like this. This is Gene Lindemood talking to the great English Formula One champion Stirling Moss. Gene saw me and called me around the table to introduce Gino to Stirling. This was a great honor for me. I don't know how many days these Ferrari contestants have been here, but they wanted to be at the head of the line for the race. Just another side street with more awesome cars. One important fact to remember: you have to qualify to enter the race, by having a museum quality special type car which must be authenticated and approved by a committee before you can even enter the race. So what you're seeing is the best of the best sitting outdoors in the rain. We walked all around everywhere, enjoying more and more of what we were seeing. You can tell half of the town of Brescia is here too, enjoying what they're seeing too. This is another perk that we had. Our whole 30-member automobile magazine group was seated right next to this viewing platform. You can see the thousands of people to the right that are lined up along the street waiting for the cars to come up onto the ramp to the platform. The first car up was Jean Alesi, the popular Italian Formula One champion, with a Ferrari car. Then the media showed up with TV cameras to interview Alesi for 10 minutes. The next Formula One champion to be interviewed was Sterling Moss in a gull-wing Mercedes. And then the first race entry came up. Remember, blue means it was a Bugatti. Here we are, not more than 10 feet away, seeing every car up close, and equally important, getting to hear the distinct sound of every entry as it races away. Music to our ears. One thing to remember, even though it's called a race, only about 10% of the cars will be racing. Obviously, this one is a show and go entry. Check out that muffler. These guys are at least dressed like racers. It looks like a polished aluminum body. Something different. These guys came to race. Another pair that came to race. These guys are on their 600-mile cruise. Cool. On the last evening of our automobile magazine tour, we were invited to a feast in this castle by Automobile Magazine. We were requested to bring a suit, and it looks like Cortissimo is all ready to go to dinner. Inside we were greeted by Mr. Davis to sit at his table, which I eagerly agreed to do. We were next greeted by Jean Lindemood, and I asked if I could take her picture, and she obliged with a nice smile. She said, "You know, most people are not going to believe that's me." I said, "Why?" She says, "As you know, my column in Automobile Magazine is called Vile Gossip." I said, "Yes, but that's not you." She said, "Yes, but most people don't know that. You need to take one more picture." She said, "Come over here and take this photo for the Vile Gossip readers. This is what they expect." She's very creative, but this is not the lady that we know. So we went to our table, and I sat next to Mr. Davis, with Cortissimo next to me and Brian Aldo opposite Cortissimo. We're starting with wine, and then dinner was served on a round turntable in the middle of the table. Now remember, we're right on the Swiss border, which means there was no Italian pasta or seafood. There was about 6 different plates of meats, none looking anything like we had ever seen before. So I started first and took a small sample of what was right in front of me. Curtis and Brian saw me and did the same thing. Then when the turntable rotated, we did the same thing with the next 3 meats, took a taste of each one, and then went back to the turntable and loaded up on the ones that tasted good to us. Then we all ate and talked around the table for about an hour. Then they cleared the tables, and this musical group came out and played music I've never heard before on instruments I've never seen before. But it was really beautiful. I thought we were finished then, but they brought around a second course of meats, which we all stuffed ourselves on again, while talking to everyone else about their car experiences. After being completely full and having the table cleared again, I knew we were ready to go. Wrong. Now they brought around a turntable of awesome desserts. By the time we left, we had to be rolled out to the car. So after thanking Mr. Davis for the best vacation we ever had, we started walking back to our car, and I said that was the best dinner I've ever had. And both Brian and Curtis agreed, and none of us knew exactly what the meats were called, only that they were fantastic.
Number 8 qualifier from Olympia, Washington. Driving for both the Luxor Novak Revolution Excel Racing Battery 4-season Thirsty. Number 8 qualifier.
Stock truck, A main.
Alright. Round 1, 1993. Marshals are ready, scoring is ready, driver's ready, less than 5, go! Come on, Court. We got a ribbon. Starting right out. Let's go. I'm going to get on that motor right there. Jack Johnson. Pulling up into the 4th spot. Driving for the 4th. Come on, Scott. Rick Balo. Pursuing the horse car and the horse power and hiding it. Start showing with a fast black line of 4/10 of a second. Come on, Court. Now he was down the back straightaway. Green and white car chases down purple and white car. Jeremy Court. Purple and white at the double, the green and white car.
I told you, dude.
Got you. Jack Johnson moving up to the he gets behind. Gets around Melo. The battle in the back of the pack, trying to get this distance for points. This is a total point race. Top car in this race will get 10 points. And look at the race after these three main events. Main event number 1. It's like a wreck. And now Scott Hughes going up on the back of the horse car. Look inside. Oh, look at Hughes. Makes the inside move.
Come on, Corey. You want some more natural stuff.
Look at the motoring stuff. Anyway, of course, one more time. A lot of horsepower in the twisted power car, of course. Green and white car. Twisted power is the Osho motor.
Jack, you started way back. Oh, thank you.
What do you get out of it?
We start, right here's where we start next time. I'll be pitching both.
I'm not straightaway though. The horse is open up. He's drilling him in. Got a huge head of chance. But look at now. Jack Johnson, red and silver car at the 342 mark. Pulls up on the back of the green and white car of Scott Hughes. Now battle for second position. This is for points. 10 points to the winner, 9 to second, 8 to third. This time, finish the lap you're on. When it comes across the story loop, all cars will finish the lap.
Look at him here.
Jeremy Cross is finished. Hughes is finished. Johnson right behind him. Rick Balo. Greg Hodan. Also is Louisville, Kentucky, Brian Dunbar. Gil Losey Jr. Matt Ledger. Rick Balo. Scott Hughes.
All right, Scott. Woo!
Qualifier Mark Comitas.
All right, Mark. Woo!
Chasing Mr. Mike Stein. 1992 Hismar 110 Cup two-wheel drive world champion Brian Kenwall. 1993 Monster Truck Stock National Champion and Top Qualifier Jeremy Court. We're here in the pole race. You gotta stand up, please. Back straightaway. Marshall, can I see your hands up there?
Modified truck, A main.
Over here. Thank you. 3, 2, 6, 7. All right, marshals are all set. Scoring is ready. Drivers will go through the starting procedure. The white line in front of each car will be the white line in front of each car. That would be the one lap on the stop start. All right. The procedure will be the same. Marshals are set. Drivers are ready. Less than 5, and then I will say the match is first. Scoring is ready. Yeah, you'll have to get off the track. Scoring is ready. Drivers less than 5. Going back. Marshals are ready. Scoring is ready. Drivers less than 5. Go. Oh, Kimball!
Just a little while, a lot of horsepower, different change in the pace. Goes in the wall, Kimball goes in the wall. And look at it, coming from the back of the pack. The middle section, big change in pace here. Horsepower being a major factor. The white and pink and blue car.
He was mowing there, wasn't he?
Jeremy Court, one more time, down off the lead. Number 4 car, right behind him, Mark Pavitas. And the blue and green car, Greg Hodep, Brian Kimball. Of course, down that straightaway. There's some horsepower down on the Pavitas car. There we go. Takes up a lot of space on court. They come back towards the tabletop area, and referees are watching the race. Horseman, Pavitas going at it. Oh, Pavitas coming real high on course, pulls it up on the back as they go to the tabletop area, and then he goes down the straightaway, right behind him. And the blue green car looks like Greg Hodam. The next, Ryan Kimball. Kimball, green wheels, 1992 IFAR world champion. He comes down the steps, and Pavitas pulls right up in the corners on the course car. Oh, first they go! Mark Pavitas takes the lead, and now, of course, let's play catch up one more time. Mark Pavitas goes towards the tabletop, and of course, whoa! There's the horsepower, goes inside, and holds it into the grass. And take care of it yourself. Let him go by. All right. Easy, guys. No talking for down below. Let him race on the back.
Go, Jeremy!
Pavitas and Court. Court is tons of horsepower. And Pavitas with the lead. And look at right behind him, the blue and green, the blue and black car, Ryan Kenwell. And then right behind him, the white and green and blue car of Greg Hodam. 2.5 down, a minute and a half to go. Jeremy Court chasing down Mark Pavitas, coming down the steps. And look at the... Whoa, easy there. Watch that. And now everything keeps Court goes into the 4th place. There's a long stop with Joel in the back. And Court goes dead in the corner, 30 seconds to go. The white, blue, and black car, Brian Kimball. Hanging on the lead. 2nd place, Greg Hodam. Mike Dunn in the 3rd spot. And then the green and white car, Scott Hughes in the 4th spot. Here we go down the back straightaway. Our world champion. Finish the lap you're on. They're almost finished. Almost finished. Cars are done. There he is, round 1 winner, 1992 world champion, round 1, Brian Kimball. Give him a big round of applause. Wow. That's a little rougher. No blood for Paul. All right. Get him out there.
I was at the hobby show in Chicago, and the show just finished, and we were finished packing up, so I was walking down an aisle to leave. I was coming up to Andy Jacobson's booth. Andy makes those fabulous RC car bodies, and I thought I'd stop by and say hello. Andy saw me coming and met me in the center of the aisle. We had talked a few minutes, and Mike Reedy was walking by, and we all started to talk again. A few minutes later, Andy said, "Here comes Ernie," and motioned Ernie over. Ernie stopped, said hello, and out of the blue, Andy said, "Wouldn't it be great for the hobby industry if you guys co-held a race like a Reedy Trinity race? What do you guys think about that?" I didn't say a word. Ernie said, "I'm not too good at working out the details. Maybe Mike could do that." Reedy agreed to do it. Everybody shook hands, and we all left. As time went by, I would ask Mike about the Reedy Trinity race, and Mike would always say, "Ernie's not really sure what he wants to do," so nothing got done. About 3 months after the show, I got a phone call from one of our racers, and he said, "Gene, you need to go over to the SoCal track. Brian's there with all Losi cars." So I immediately went to the track, and sure enough, Brian was there with all Losi cars. I said, "Brian, we need to talk." He obviously was surprised to see me and said, "Okay, but not here. Can we go to the coffee shop next door?" I said, "Okay," and we went over there. Brian started to tear up and said, "I didn't want to do it. I really like racing with you guys, but my father said I had to do it because we needed the money." His father was an unemployed actor who was out of work for a few years. So I said I understand, and got up and left. If Ernie is one thing, he's consistent. So much for the Reedy Trinity races. I was working on the instructions for our new RC10 GT gas truck, but I couldn't find a way, in words, to tell what the engine sounds like when it's too rich or too lean or just right. The only way someone could hear the engine was with a video. Because there would be so many drivers going from electric trucks to gas trucks, I thought it was important enough to make the following and put it in each gas truck. We were the first ones to put videos in our kits.
Hello, my name is Curtis Husting. We're going to show you the carburetor adjustments. This is the idle air adjustment. This is the bottom end fuel adjustment. And this is the top end fuel adjustment.
Perfect.
This is the carburetor wide open. When it's all the way closed, there should be about a 30 seconds of an inch gap, which is adjusted by this screw. This is the bottom end fuel adjustment screw. This is the top end fuel adjustment screw. This is the air cleaner assembly. This is the air cleaner adapter, the air cleaner, and the Okay, we're going to show you the carburetor and brake linkage and show you the proper way that it should be hooked up. This is the carburetor right here. It's in the closed position. The transmitter and the radio in the car is on. And you can see where the linkage is hooked up to the carburetor with the ball joint. And as you move down farther, there's a set collar and then a throttle return spring. Throttle return spring should have just enough pressure to keep the carburetor closed when it's on idle. As you go farther down, there's another collar that should have about a 1/16 of an inch gap. And that leaves a little bit of room for when you pull on the throttle and open it up, it leaves room for the brake to release, which I'll tell you about later. This is the brake arm, which also has a set collar on it, which has a gap between it and the brake arm itself that goes to the transmission, has about a 1/16 of an inch gap there. Next is the brake spring, which has a little bit of pressure on it just to get the truck to stop. You don't need a lot of pressure, just a little bit, which you'll find when you're running it you can adjust. And this is the nut that you use to adjust it. Screwing it in tighter squeezes down on the spring more, loosening it up, it makes the spring looser, which gives you less brakes. Yeah, this is the throttle linkage with the carburetor closed, and as you open up the throttle, this should go all the way open without any extra tension on the throttle carburetor arm. Set your endpoints on your transmitter so that you don't overextend it and bend that plastic arm. It should just go wide open. And same thing when you release it, it should go all the way back. Now the brake arm should work the same way. When it's fully open, the brake arm should push back and release the brake. And as you let the throttle go down to idle, the brake spring should have a little bit of pressure to hold the brakes on. This is the carburetor and throttle linkage in the neutral position. And right now there should be just a little bit of pressure on the brakes just to hold the car still. As you pull the throttle open just a little bit, you see the carburetor open, the brakes should be spinning free. That way, when the motor's trying to go, the brakes are free. If you have it adjusted wrong, the motor will be trying to go and the brakes will be trying to make it stop, and you'll burn out the clutch. So just make sure that when the motor's part open, the brakes should be free all the way through the linkage. So where it's wide open, it should spin free.
Hi, I'm Cliff Lett with Team Associated, and I'm going to help you learn a little bit about the way we suggest starting your car, glow plug procedures to check and see if it's good, checking the fuel tank, just general setup information. But the first thing I'd like to talk to you about is a little bit about safety. Whenever you're running your truck, never run your truck on the street like you'll see us running here. We're going to be using this only for setup procedures and to teach you how to tune the engine so you can hear actually what the engine's doing when we make the changes. So to reiterate that, please don't run your truck in the street where it'll endanger yourself or any other vehicles or people riding by. The first thing we're going to cover is the glow plug. We're going to show you a couple different ways to check and see if the glow plug's good, what it looks like when it's glowing correctly. What we're going to do here is all of our testing and information we're going to give you here is going to be done without the body on the truck. So I'm going to take the body off and we'll go ahead and take the glow plug out. What we use is a 5/16 nut driver. Okay, we're going to take the glow plug out by using this 5/16 nut driver. I'll tilt it over so I don't drop the glow plug. As you can see, there's a little copper washer that goes around the glow plug. Don't lose that. You need to put that back in. So I'll lay that right here on the head. Okay, glow plug has a little wire element that has the glow, and that's what keeps the engine alive and running. What we use to start that with is, this is a McDaniel RC Glow Start Night Starter. And it has a little meter here at the top. This is a really nice one, and we suggest you using this because what this will do, it will tell you if the glow plug's good or bad. And I'll show you what it looks like when it's glowing. I put this in the end, and the little wire, if you can see, glows orange. And that's what keeps the engine live and running. Next thing we're going to do is talk a little bit about the fuel tank. And before we put fuel in, I want to tell you a couple features about the fuel tank. The way we design this tank, it uses a centered clunk type fuel filter so that all the fuel that leaves the tank and goes into the carburetor is clean and pure. Also, the tank is always pressurized by the exhaust system. And we use this small silicone tube which comes from the exhaust muffler, goes through a couple loops. It's important to have these loops in there. We'll cover that later. And pressurizes the tank right here in the center into this fitting. The way that it's pressurized is called the chicken hopper type. And I know that sounds a little funny, but that's exactly the way it works. And without getting into great detail, what it does is it keeps the pressure consistent in the tank throughout the entire fuel tank. As the fuel level goes down, the pressure stays relatively consistent. That way it keeps your carburation settings from changing while you're running the car.
What Cliff is doing now is he's going to screw in the air, and you can hear the idle go up. That's going faster by screwing the air screw in. Okay, now he's going to screw it back so that it's back where he started, and you can hear the idle. That's what happens if you back the air screw out. The engine will die. Cliff is going to richen up the bottom end so you can see what it sounds like when it gets too rich. Here it starts to slow down. Just let it out. Now that's because it was just simply too rich on the bottom end and it died from too much fuel. Okay, now we leaned it back down to 3/4 of a turn that he had richened it up. Now it's idling right. Listen to it. And then we're going to lean it down and listen to it speed up. It started to speed up, and then it got to lean, and then it died. Those are the sounds that you need to be aware of. Cliff richened the bottom end. Cliff richened the bottom end back up 1/2 turn that he had leaned it down before, and now it's idling okay again. Right now Cliff is richening up the top end so you can hear what it sounds like when it's too rich on the top end. Cliff's going to lean it back down to where it was before and make a run. You could see when it was too rich, it ran, but it did not have much speed or power. 1/10 is leaning the top end, so you can see what happens when you go too lean. Great. That couldn't be better. That was definitely too lean. That's what happens when you go too lean. That was perfect.
It took off, and I'm going, gosh, I hope so. The next thing we want to show you is how to adjust the slipper, and the easiest way to do that is to set it to where it's too loose and let you hear what it sounds like when the slipper's slipping too much.
I couldn't really hear a lot. Is that it? Let's have it. That's right.
That was a good one.
Did you grip it down there? Okay, we need to stop.
Now I'm going to show you the proper procedure for starting with a hand starter. As you can see, we have a 12-volt hand starter here, which is available from just about any hobby shop, and this is a rechargeable gel cell battery. First thing we're going to do is we're going to turn the transmitter on. The second thing we're going to do is plug the car in and turn the radio on in the car. You never want to start your car without the radio turned on. Then put your knife starter on, lean the car up, holding it from the rear, and start it by pushing the button on the hand starter and putting it against the flywheel through the hole in the bottom of the chassis. As soon as the engine starts, set this hand starter down, pick up your transmitter, and give it about a 1/10 of a throttle, just a little bit of a throttle to raise the RPM up and get it cleaned out long enough to set it back down and take your glow stop.